We just finished Proverbs Chapter 26, so we're going to start here in Chapter 27. Boast not thyself of tomorrow, for thou knowest not what a day may bring forth. That theme is also mentioned in the New Testament. I can't recall where. It's a parable about somebody saying, "Hey, tomorrow we're going to go do this, this, and this in the city," and the Lord says, "Fool, today your soul will be required of you." And basically, and then there's another theme too in the New Testament that says, "Do not worry about tomorrow. Sufficient for the day is the trouble wherewith." Like, just focus on today. It's interesting that this verse comes up because this is something I've been thinking about lately. Like, often there's this idea that if you look backwards in time, looking back at your past decisions with regret, it causes depression. And if you look forward into time, it causes worry and anxiety. We're supposed to live for the day. The Lord said, "Give us this day our daily bread." We're supposed to seek what we need for today, to not worry about tomorrow. And in this case, not to brag about tomorrow, like making bold plans. The scriptures tell us, instead of saying tomorrow I'm going to go do this, this, and this, we say, if the Lord wills, I'll do this, this, and this. Basically, holding loose to plans, realizing that we can't foresee the future. We have no idea what the Lord's providence is going to bring into our path on a day-to-day basis. So we're supposed to live in the moment. Focus on today. Worry about today's struggles, today's problems. Struggling against your own sin. Trusting the Lord to provide for the moment. Not worried about what's next, and trusting that to the Lord. The balance comes where people try to be wise and plan for the future. But like you're on like a razor's edge there when you do that, because it's almost impossible for that not to turn to like worry or some sort of hope. So, to hold loosely to plans, if the Lord wills, we'll do this, this, and this. So it's like, here's a tentative plan for my future, and I'll trust the Lord to it. I'm not going to boast like I have some sort of power over tomorrow. We don't have power over the next moment. So we're to trust the Lord in every moment. Like I said, the wisdom there is just that hard balance between being wise, like especially when it comes to like finances. People think about like saving up bank account and stuff like that, but that's exactly what that parable was talking about. Having an excess and building up storage units, building up bigger barns and saying, I have an abundance, now I can rest easy. So it's like people's hearts go into that direction, and it shows that money and material gain has a hold on our hearts. We shouldn't, and people do it because they're thinking, well, I'm going to have car problems, or I'm going to have, what if I lose my job, or some sort of medical emergency comes up. And so they justify this mindset that is focused on material gain and wealth, providing this hope and comfort for them. And that's essentially, it's a hard word, because people can't figure out how to do, to have wisdom, to prepare for emergencies without having your heart set on it. It's this delicate balance. Like, I don't even know how to explain it. It's where the scriptures specifically tell us we're not to worry about tomorrow. And in this case, boast not of tomorrow. Like don't have these bold plans for the future. Just trust the Lord. Rest in the Lord. He'll provide what is needed in the future. And so if the Lord does provide you excess, if the Lord does provide you riches or whatever, to prayerfully, consider what can be done with this today. What does the Lord want me to do with this today? And not worry about tomorrow and whether or not it's going to go away or not. Like, to hold loosely to it. There's just this fine line that needs to be walked between wise planning and holding loose to the plans and just entrusting yourself to the Lord, focusing on today. Verse 2, let another man praise thee, and not thine own mouth, a stranger, and not thine own lips. So that's pretty straightforward. Don't be bragging about yourself. Don't boast in yourself. Don't proclaim your own good qualities to the world. That's a selfish. It's a pride. It's a need of approval from men. Like, recognize the good I've done. Our whole society is based on that. Like, think about all the award shows and employees of the month and certificates and all this stuff that we give each other to recognize our good achievements. If we're seeking that, if we're pointing out our own things like, yay, look at me, that's evil. Let another person praise you. Let others see your good deeds and praise, and then you can reflect that back to the Father. You can give glory to the Father. All good things come from Him. But it's just a selfish, like, pride, needing the approval of men to try to seek your own glory, to try to point out your own good. Hey, look at me, type thing. Even the clothes that we wear are designed at that. Even this, babies' lives matter. It's like I'm trying to make a point, like, ooh, look at me, I care about baby lives. Or the bumper stickers we get. Just some people wear, revealing clothes, so it's like, ooh, look at my body, or look at my muscles, or whatever it is. We're seeking praise. And that's just it's the evilness of the heart of man. Verse 3, a stone is heavy and the sand weighty, but a fool's wrath is heavier than them both. So you don't want to come under the wrath of a fool. It's a heavy thing. It's a big, like emotions sometimes feel like they have weight to them. And so to have the wrath of a foolish person, it's a heavy, weighty thing you want to avoid. Verse 4, wrath is cruel and anger is outrageous, but who is able to stand before envy? So we have a rhetorical question there at the end, and a comparison is made. Wrath is cruel. So wrath I take to mean like revenge, like it's a payback, and it says wrath is cruel, and it is. It looks to that vengeful attitude looks to inflict pain on others. It's not satisfied unless it sees pain in the face of others. It's not satisfied unless it sees the discomfort of the object it's aiming at. So wrath is cruel, and it says that anger is outrageous. Anger is volatile and explosive and nonsensical. It's chaotic. Anger is just an explosive, violent, it's like a bomb going off. Wrath, the visual you get is a torturer. Anger is like an explosion. And then it says, but who is able to stand before envy? So the rhetorical question there is saying that envy is worse than both of those. You can't even stand before envy. And I take envy to mean like a jealous bitterness, like a jealous desiring of, like, jealousy is a weird thing in that you see somebody who has something you want, whether that's approval of men or status or money or possessions or what we would call luck or whatever. And not only do you want it, but it causes you to despise the person who has it. Such an odd thing that just because they've been favored by the providence of God, but a lot that God has given them, it causes us to dislike them. It causes a hatred, and like who can stand before that, the word says. So envy is worse than wrath and anger. And I think I'll stop there. That was verse 4. So Lord willing, we'll pick up on verse 5 next time. All right, I love you guys. We'll talk to you later. Hey everybody. We're continuing on in Proverbs chapter 27. We read through verse 4, so we're going to pick up here in verse 5. It says, open rebuke is better than secret love. It takes wisdom to be able to receive a rebuke, like an open rebuke. If a person is doing that, the reason it's better than secret love is that it's a rebuke is a corrective measure. There's somebody's looking out for your benefit in that case. Our pride doesn't like to be rebuked. We don't like to be told we're wrong. But there's good on the other end of that. Like if you're walking down the wrong path and you're really enjoying that path, and somebody says, hey, danger's ahead, you got to come this way. We might not necessarily like leaving that pleasant path that we were on, but the person is directing us out of danger. There's goodness in that. Even when a person comes, like a really wise person learns to accept rebuke even when it's done in the wrong tenor or tone. If a person comes and like takes some sort of pleasure out of rebuking you, or they makes them feel superior or something, but if it's still true, if there's still truth in it, it's a real corrective measure, then a wise person accepts that. Secret love doesn't benefit anybody. To have somebody secretly in love with you and not tell you, like that it offers no benefit at all. But an open rebuke does. And so that leads into verse 6 here. Faithful are the wounds of a friend, but the kisses of an enemy are deceitful. So a true friend, somebody, and I suppose we would have to define what a real friend is, because most of the world just has acquaintances. A real friend is somebody who is looking out for your betterment, is wanting to see you do well, wanting to see you prosper, is their goal for your life is your good and your whole, in biblical context, your holiness, your righteousness. They want what is best for you. They want what is beneficial for you. So if somebody who has that heart and truly cares about you wounds you, if it's not accidental, but in this case the context is faithful are the wounds of a friend. And backing up, it's to do with the rebuke. A friend is bringing a corrective measure. It's like a parent who chastises their child. A spanking is not pleasant to a child, but a proper, correct, disciplinary spanking is a good, wholesome thing. It's meant to better that child. It's meant to correct that child. And so a wound to you, a wound done to you by a faithful friend is a corrective, beneficial measure. It's done to bring your life onto a better track, to cause you to walk in truth. This is all in biblical context. A biblical rebuke. It's a faithful thing. And then it says the kisses of an enemy are deceitful. Somebody who views themselves as your enemy and kisses you, it's deceitful. Like the Judas kiss to Jesus. It's mockery. It's flattery. The intent of the heart is evil towards you. They're trying to get you to, it's an offensive tactic to get you to lower your guard, to pretend to be friendly to you when they have ill interests at heart. So a real true friend is not afraid to be truthful with you, to be blunt with you, even when it's going to hurt your feelings, because they want what is best for you. Verse 7, the full soul loatheth a honeycomb, but to the hungry soul every bitter thing is sweet. And that's not just talking about food, that's talking about just when you're filled with something, you no longer like if you just had a buffet and then somebody offers you the greatest steak in the world, filet mignon and lobster tail and just all this succulent, delicious food, but you just ate at a buffet, it's not going to appeal. It's going to look disgusting because you're full. But if you're starving, Burger King looks great. If you're starving to death, if you meet somebody who's starving and you were to offer them, the raunchiest, nastiest McDonald's sandwich you could think of, it's going to look great. It's going to, it's sustenance. They're dying of starvation. And in biblical context, like, we're supposed to have that hunger for the things of God. I think I heard Pastor Piper once say that if you're finding a lack of desire for the things of God, it's because you've nibbled too long at the things of the world. You have filled yourself with the $3 buffet so that the succulent, expensive meal no longer looks pleasing. We fill ourselves with the junk of the world, with entertainment and the cares of the world and riches and all that nonsense. Lust and just everything else you can think of that fulfills the senses, fulfills the flesh senses. It looks good, it smells good, it tastes good, it makes you feel good. Those types of things. The spiritual no longer looks pleasing. It no longer has an appeal to you. You no longer hunger for the golden treasures of God because you filled yourself with the earthen treasures of the flesh. So the gold no longer looks great. It's no longer appealing. We're supposed to hunger and thirst for the things of God, and that's part of what I think the idea of fasting is. When you fast from food, it's to beat your flesh into submission, to say, no, I'm going to deny myself these fleshly pleasures in order to seek the beautiful pleasures of God, in order to seek in prayer a greater experience in the Lord. I'm going to deny the flesh. And it's supposed to teach us that we should deny filling our fleshly desires so that we're spurred on to fill ourselves with the things of God. And if the things of God are not all that appealing to you, then something's wrong in your soul. You're filling your soul with nonsense. You're too full on the other things. We ought to desire God, like the Psalms say, like a deer that pants after water. Imagine a deer that just ran for miles and is dying of thirst, so to speak, and they come across a creek. They desire it so bad. They're just in it and drinking. You think about like the gazelles that you see on nature shows. They'll go up to dangerous waters with crocodiles because they've been out in the desert for so long. They need that water. And that's how we're supposed to be with the things of God, with prayer and meditation on the scriptures and fellowship with the saints and worship and song and studying the word, just spending time in the presence of God. We're supposed to desire that so much. Like it's like we're dying of thirst and we need him. But that desire is quenched because we're drinking soda pop, so to speak, in that analogy. Instead of getting the pure water, we're drinking tarnished chemicals, and filling ourselves with that. So that's a major problem, and that's what that proverb is getting at there. If you're full, even a honeycomb, even honey, delicious honey, is not appealing. You loathe it. The idea of it is disgusting. But a hungry soul Every bitter thing is sweet, even the bitter judgments of God. Even the hard sayings of Scripture become sweet and palatable and delicious because you're hungering for the things of God. You're desiring the things of God. That even those things that seemingly appear harsh and frightening, they're beautiful because you hunger and thirst for Him. So again, if you find yourself not hungering for the things of God, something's wrong. You've been nibbling too much at the world. You need to starve the flesh and seek out those things. Seek out those things of God. So that was verse 7. I think I'll stop there, and then Lord willing, we'll pick up in verse 8 next time. All right, I love you guys. We'll talk to you later. Hey everybody. We're continuing on in Proverbs chapter 27. We read through verse 7, so we're going to pick up here in verse 8. It says, "As a bird that wandereth from her nest, so is a man that wandereth from his place." I don't know why, but this has been a verse that's always perplexed me. Like, and it's one of those ones. I mean, there's a lot of verses that I don't have full understanding or even partial understanding on, but for some reason this one has always stood out to me. Like, what in the world? So you have, what is that called? I think a simile, where a comparison is being made between two things. So, as a bird that wandereth from her nest. What's a bird that wandereth from his nest like? I don't understand that. Because however that is like a man that wandereth from his place. So, a bird that wanders from its nest. Don't birds leave their nests all the time? Like, isn't that a good thing? But the context seems to imply that a man wandering from his place is a bad thing. It's like, I've just always been perplexed by this. Like, what in the world does a bird wandering from its nest imply? What is meant by that? Am I missing something here? I'm sure somebody's got some understanding out there. Is it referring to a baby bird, you think? A baby bird that wanders from its nest would be in severe danger. So then a man that wanders from his place, perhaps that's it, because that kind of makes sense. I guess that a man wandering from his place would be, in modern day language, something along the lines of stay in your lane. Walk in the path that don't try to go outside of your designed field there. So I suppose that makes sense. I don't know. It's just, for some reason, it's been a verse for years and years and years that's always just perplexed me, because I feel like it's something that I should understand, like, right out the gate, but I don't understand what a bird wandering from its nest is supposed to imply there. Verse 9, "Ointment and perfume rejoice the heart, so doth the sweetness of a man's friend by hearty counsel." So here's another, I think I'm saying it right? That's a simile when two things are compared. A metaphor is saying something is like something almost in a poetic form, but a simile is a comparison of two things. I think, I don't know, English wasn't my top suit or top class in school, but so ointment and perfume rejoice the heart. There's something about this, the sense of smell, like smelling something great, brings joy. And so that also makes you think, like, we should be doing more of that. And I suppose that's why people use, like, candles or incense or similar things, because it brings a sense of happiness, a sense of joy to smell good things. So to smell like your spouse's perfume or cologne or whatever, or just like I say, like a candle, just it brings joy, or a good smelling lotion. So in that same way, the sweetness of a man's friend by hearty counsel. Getting hearty would be like wholesome, full counsel, getting wise, good, full counsel and wisdom from a friend, like a direction and guidance. In the same way that a smell rejoices the heart, that also rejoices us, to get that wise guidance and shepherding, correction, direction. It's a good thing to have. Verse 10, thine own friend and thy father's friend forsake not. Neither go into thy brother's house in the day of thy calamity, for better is a neighbor that is near than a brother far off. It's another verse that's always perplexed me. The first part, so it's just, don't forsake your friends or your father's friends. You should be friendly with the people that are friends with your father. Like my dad's friends, I almost consider them family. Like they're part of the family. You grew up with them, you knew them. And I suppose it's that same way, because I think about my friends' kids. They view me as their uncle. It's like there's such a close, intimate relationship there. So you don't want to forsake that. You want to keep that. You want to. Those are they should almost become part of your family. But then the second part, I'm not really sure what it's saying there. Neither. So don't do this. Don't go into your brother's house in the day of calamity. So when something tragic happens, don't go to your brother's house. Why? Because it says, for better is a neighbor that is near than a brother far off. Is that just saying you need immediate assistance, immediate help? It's best to just go get that immediate help than a distant brother. I'm not really sure there either. Some complex verses that, for me anyways, that have just perplexed me for years. And I'm not one, let me just throw this out there too as a cautionary thing. I caution people on this all the time. I don't like going to commentaries or footnotes or hearing what some scholar or pastor from the past or even current pastor, I don't like to hear them tell me what a verse means. I don't like that, because then if they're in error, but their error makes sense, you're going to adopt that error. I would rather just wrestle a thing out with the Lord, just to sit and ponder on this and meditate upon it and think it over, rather than just running to the nearest commentary book and saying, oh, what does it say about Proverbs 27:10? That's a cheap way of getting information, and it also can be tainted. I view it like, instead of just getting meat from the source, you're getting regurgitated, chewed up meat from somebody else. So just as a caution, wrestle things out for yourself. When you don't understand something, just wait on the Lord. Verse 11. Or actually, I think I'll stop there. That was verse 10. All right. I love you guys, and we'll talk to you next time. Hey, everybody. We're continuing on in Proverbs 27. We read through verse 10, so we're going to pick up here in verse 11. My son, be wise, and make my heart glad, that I may answer him that reproacheth me. A prudent man foreseeth the evil, and hideth himself. But the simple pass on, and are punished. That's a nugget of wisdom that's really, I guess, kind of stuck with me since the beginning of my salvation. A prudent man, it just seems like such a simple nugget of wisdom, but it's such great insight that we don't realize until we come to the light of the knowledge of God in the Scriptures. That prudence, which would be I don't know what a good definition would be for that, a cautious wisdom, to be temperate in your actions, to be slow to react, to wisely consider things before acting. And so a prudent man, a man with this kind of wisdom, this safe wisdom that observes and sees things for what they really are, considers things, is the opposite of being reactionary, I think would be prudent. A man that has this kind of wisdom foresees the evil. He looks ahead and can see the traps of sin, can see the evil, can see the outcome of sin and hides himself, averts it, stays away from it, goes around it. Another verse talks about walking circumspectly, because sin is a trap. In the same way that a trap or a lure attracts the prey with bait, something that is appealing, something that looks good. Sin is that same way. Sin promises some sort of satisfaction, some sort of pleasure. Sin allures with that bait, says, come and taste, it is good, you'll have fun. But it's a trap. It's a trap that leads to destruction and death. All sin, the outcome is misery. And so a prudent man foresees that, looks ahead and sees the trap, sees the lure, sees the bait, and avoids it, walks circumspectly, moves around it. But the simple, those without wisdom, those without the light of the glory of the knowledge of God in the face of Jesus Christ, the simple pass on. They just keep going down that path and are punished. The wages of sin is death. You cannot sin without the consequences of sin, which is some form of damage, some form of death. And so a simple person sees the bait, sees the lure, and can only think about the pleasure it's going to bring, can only think about the satisfaction they're going to get, the temporary joy. And so they dive headlong into it. They keep walking down that path, and then they sit and wonder why bad things are happening to them. They wonder why their life is in shambles. They wonder why they're in pain and suffering and sorrow and depression and anger and just bitterness, because they don't have their eyes opened. They can't foresee the consequences of sin. They can't tie it together. They can't see, oh, I'm reaping what I sowed. That there's a lack of knowledge. But the prudence that is a gift from God, when he opens your eyes, foresees the evil, knows, if I go for that, I'm going to suffer the consequences. There's going to be punishment for that. There's going to be consequences for that. So a prudent man, and the more we grow in holiness, the more we grow in wisdom, we start, you're still lured because the flesh is weak. The flesh wants that pleasure. The flesh wants to feel good. And so the born-again Christian is stuck in this duality where it's a trap, but your flesh draws you into it on occasion. And the path of sanctification is to avoid that more and more, to conquer the flesh, to say no, to say you don't get that temporary pleasure because we're going to pay for it on the other end. So you walk in holiness. Verse 13. Take his garment that is surety for a stranger, and take a pledge of him for a strange woman. Surety is something about a guarantee, like it's about a lend. It's a pledge to pay back a loan, kind of. It's a banking term, I think. A down deposit, something that says, you give me now, I'm going to give back. So to take his garment that is surety for a stranger, and take a pledge, I suppose that's just wisdom to ensure you're going to get paid back. You're not going to be taken advantage of. I think. I'm not really sure on that verse. Verse 14, he that blesseth his friend with a loud voice, rising early in the morning, it shall be counted a curse to him. That's wisdom as well. There's people out there, myself included, that are just not morning people. There's something about our chemical makeup, our disposition, our nature, where we aren't able to function properly in the mornings. Like I wake up and it's like I'm in a fog. It just takes a while. It's like a computer booting up. It takes a while for me to be able to function in a proper way. And so even in that case, even somebody who wakes up and blesses you, hey, good morning, how you doing? It's counted a curse. It's an irritation. So I think the wisdom here is to just be aware of that. Be aware that some people aren't morning people, and so you have to respect that and temper you're optimistic, enthusiastic. Some people just wake up and are immediately chipper. But you have to recognize there's not people like that. And so I would think this verse is saying there's nothing wrong with that, with people that just have a hard time getting up. You just have to respect that. You have to be aware that some people need a little bit of time to gather their thoughts, to gather their disposition, to act in a right way. Verse 15, a continual dropping in a very rainy day and a contentious woman are alike. So we get several verses about a contentious woman. And so the scriptures are warning men, when you're searching out for a spouse, unfortunately men go after vanity, men go after beauty, but you really need to look at the character of an individual. You're looking for a godly, prudent woman. If a woman is contentious, prone to fights, prone to arguments, prone to spitefulness and bitterness and vengeance, it's telling you here that like a rainy day, just imagine being out in the cold rain and it's just continually coming down on you. There's no relief from it. It's just exhaustive. You just get wore down by it. That's what it's like to have a contentious spouse. And it's talking to men here, but this applies to women as well. You want a man of godly character. You don't want, if you like, as a born again person, I'll sit and I'll look at lost people, specifically on television or whatnot, and just look how they act towards each other, and it's almost shocking. It's like, man, how could anybody? Why would you want, like, people who go to the bar to find a spouse? What kind of person do you think you're going to find there? You're not going to find a good spouse, but people are just obsessed with looks. And so they bypass character defaults thinking, oh, eventually I'll be able to fix them. But you just look at the language people use and you think, man, these are people that are supposed to love each other and they speak to each other like that. It's disgusting. It's repulsive. It's a horrible thing. You think, how could anybody speak to another person like that? As a born-again person looking at that, and then you have to realize, as such were we once. When we were lost, we acted that way too. But wisdom is, and unfortunately, I don't see a whole lot of this in the Christian church. It's still just, you see young people marrying for looks, marrying for materialistic purposes, marrying for the wrong reasons, rather than taking the time to carefully examine a person to see what is the character of this individual. Is this a godly person? Is this a righteous, holy, loving, peaceful, joyful person? Does this person portray biblical characteristics? Or are they just a good-looking person that, it's people settle for that without the character, and then they wonder why they find themselves in horrible relationships down the road. You need to take the time. You need to resist the temptation of the eyes that says, ooh, that person looks good, I want to be with them, or that person's charismatic and flattering or whatever. Step back. Take the time. So you have to separate the romance, because the moment you bring romance into it, you're bonding with that person and then you're stuck. So you separate the romance, you examine the individual through a long period of time, because people can put on a front, people can fake it. You want to examine them until you realize who they are without the veil. Who are they in private? Who are they in their normal everyday conversations? What kind of language comes out of them? What kind of behavior comes out of them? What kind of attitude? How do they treat other people? Examine that fruit, and that's how you should be finding a spouse. But like I say, this is preached till the cows come home, so to speak, and it still just upsets me and grieves me, really, that you see so many, especially young Christians, just marrying for vanity, just marrying for looks. They find a good-looking person, and then they know they're supposed to find a godly person, so they'll look for anything that they can say, oh, they're godly. Oh, yeah, he says he's a Christian. Oh, yeah, he went to church, Oh, yeah, she says she loves the Lord. She has a Bible, she's got the Christian radio station bumper sticker on her car, and then they just settle because they want the looks. They're attracted to the vanity. They don't take the, and then also, unfortunately, they immediately engage in romantic activity. So then that bond becomes strong, and then it's really hard to step back. Even if you see character defaults at that point, you're already united to them. So it's a sad state that people just don't take the time to step back and just examine a person's life without romance. Just look at them for a long period of time and see, who is this person? What is their character? Are they really a biblical Christian, or do they just say they're a Christian? And for men, a lot of men end up with a contentious, bitter, argumentative, domineering wife. And then it's like they're just living in rain all the time, just being continually rained upon. And you can see it on their faces after a while. Men just get beat down and just give up. And you just see it on them. So, and women too. Women get stuck in bad, abusive relationships with angry, aggressive men who drink and cuss and swear and verbally abuse or physically abuse, mentally abuse, take advantage of, demean, put down. So it goes both ways. Until we get a group of people that are dedicated to the scriptures and take a step back from looking at vanity, it's just going to continue like that. You're going to find all sorts of people in bad relationships, both inside and outside the church. Outside the church, there's no real hope. You're going to end up with somebody who's, lost people do what lost people do. And when you put them together, they're going to abuse each other, use each other, and be selfish and evil towards each other. So, we'll stop there. That was verse 15. Lord willing, we'll pick up in verse 16 next time. All right, I love you guys. We'll talk to you later. Hey, everybody. We're continuing on in Proverbs 27. We read through verse 15, so we're going to pick up here in verse 16. Whosoever hideth her hideth the wind, and the ointment of his right hand which bewrayeth itself. So this is talking in reference back to verse 15, which was about the contentious woman. How a contentious woman's like a continual dropping of rain, just nonstop, wears you down. And so it says here, whoever hides her hides the wind. This is a verse, I've never understood what's meant by this, to hide the wind. And also the second point, and the ointment of his right hand which bewrayeth itself. Very perplexing. I mean, you could tell by the context that it's just talking about like it's a hard, if not impossible thing to do, to deal with a contentious woman. To hideth her, I would assume, would be to pacify, to ease the contention. So I think the overall context here is that a contentious woman is going to wear a man down and be virtually impossible to overcome or to pacify or to bring peace into the house, which again is another reason why it's so very, very important to court during a relationship, to court for marriage, to examine each other's lives, to make sure that you're not just going after somebody for lust, you're not just going after them for attraction, but that you're finding godly principles in this person. You're finding that this person is going to benefit your spiritual life and not drag you down, not cause contention, not cause issues, but it's going to be somebody that's going to come alongside you and help you in your walk with Christ. Very important. Just think about all the relationships you've seen fall apart. And it's almost every single one of them that I can think of, it's because people were attracted to the other person, and because of that attraction, because of that vanity, because of the looks, they overlook and bypass all the other character flaws. And then the other thing that ties into that is they jump right into romance, which then bonds you to that person and makes it incredibly hard to separate from them. So there's a dual thing there. There's people searching out relationships for vanity, for looks, and then adding romance to that, increasing the bond and making it hard once you do see the character flaws to separate. So it's so very, very vital and important for biblical Christians to set aside desire and lust and to examine character, to take time and effort to examine character, removing romance from the situation completely. Because the moment you add romance, there's a connection there. You have to keep that severed, so that if you find character flaws in that examination process, if you find this person isn't as godly or as mature in the faith as I desire, they're not going to benefit my spiritual walk. They're not going to help me seek the Lord. They're not going to help me in my gifts and talents. You'll be able to back away from that and say, look, after this examination here, I just don't think it's going to work. Or more importantly, during that examination period, you're going to find that a lot of people are Christian in name only. They proclaim to be Christians. They go to church, but there's no fruit in their life. You start to examine, you see they have no hunger and thirst for the Word. They're not in prayer often. They don't self-examine. They're not willing to be transparent with their own heart and see their own flaws and to fight against their own sins. They're not desperately seeking the Lord. And so when you see those things, you go, okay, this obviously, if they even are saved, they're nowhere near where they need to be. They're definitely not ready for a relationship, and so you can back off of that. So the caution to all Christians, and I know this is going to fall on deaf ears, because I see it everywhere you look. People throw this wisdom away and just go after lust and jump right into relationships, jump right into romance. And then you see relationships falling apart. You see them in the way they are. It's chaos. But if anybody out there has ears to hear and wisdom, stay away from the vanity. Stay away from the lust of the eyes and the lust of the flesh. Separate from that, and look for a biblical spouse. Somebody who's righteous and holy. No, they're not going to be perfect, but they're going to be seeking perfection. They're going to be striving towards that mark. Seek somebody who hungers and thirsts for the Lord. Seek somebody who's in the Word on a daily basis, is desiring prayer, desiring the souls of others. Seek somebody who has the godly principles, and that's both man and woman. There are biblical principles that a man is supposed to meet, and there are biblical principles that a woman is supposed to meet. Learn those principles and seek those in a potential spouse, not lust, and keep romance out of it. You have no business doing acts of romance. And I know we've all failed, but that doesn't justify failure going forward. Learn from your mistakes. Stay away from romance until you're married. There's no justifiable reason for you to commit acts of romance with a person that is not your wife or husband. Because during that courting process, what if you find out they're not the person for you, and you end up separating? Now you've done those acts of romance with somebody else's spouse. You've essentially cheated your future spouse out of those romances that are supposed to belong to them only. So this is just one of the many, many verses that talks about how we're supposed to seek a spouse. And for a man in particular, he's supposed to examine the woman to see, is she a brawler? Is she contentious? Is she argumentative? Is she stubborn? And like, I see so many women, like if you go on the Facebook dating app at one time, and people will say, I'm sassy or something like that, like it's a character benefit, like it's a good thing. I'm sassy, I'm a smart aleck, and it's like, that is contentious. That's not what a biblical man should be seeking out. Verse 17, iron sharpeneth iron, so a man sharpeneth the countenance of his friend. So you rub two pieces of iron together to sharpen them, if anybody's ever sharpened a knife or a blade. In the same way that is done, we are supposed to sharpen the countenance of our friends. A countenance is the look, the demeanor. So to sharpen it, what would that mean? To make it more effective? What would an effective countenance look like? We use this verse often, like, in the context of wisdom. Bring the wisdom you have to increase the wisdom of your brothers, and vice versa. But it's specifically talking about the countenance, to sharpen the countenance. Interesting. I don't think it's wrong to use that as this thing of iron sharpens iron. When you're with another godly person, their godliness is going to increase your godliness. Your godliness is going to increase their godliness. Your knowledge is going to increase theirs. Their knowledge is going to increase yours. So in that sense, you're sharpening each other. You're making each other more pure, more effective in the faith. And one thing I've noticed too is, like, iron and metal against metal can cause sparks. So, like, there can be sparks in that too. That's not what the verse is saying, but that's a principle, I think, that you can draw from the sharpening process. But to sharpen the countenance, and again, countenance is your visual look, your face, how you look. So I'm not sure that would take more meditation and prayer to figure out what exactly it means to sharpen the countenance of your friend. Verse 18, whoso keepeth the fig tree shall eat the fruit thereof, so he that waiteth on his master shall be honored. As in water face answereth to face, so the heart of man to man. Hell and destruction are never full, so the eyes of man are never satisfied. That's a good piece of wisdom too there. That's an observational wisdom that we see in life. You can see this if you pay attention. So it's saying hell and destruction are never full. Hell and chaos and everything that comes with chaos never says, all right, I've had enough. No more hell. No more destruction. It's never satisfied. Look at the world and how it's continually always falling into chaos and destruction. It's never satisfied. It's never said, all right, that's enough. We've reached our limit of destruction. Let's have peace now. No more natural disasters. No more dictators. No more wars. That doesn't happen. And hell is 150,000 people every day are dying. And according to the scriptures, the vast majority of those are not saved and are hellbound. For the path is narrow and there are few that find it. So hell is never full. Every day it's swallowing up thousands and even hundred of thousands, or dozens and dozens of thousands every day. And so it says, in that same way, the eyes of man are never satisfied. And the eyes are what we lust with. We look at things and we desire. And desire never stops. You see something new. You see something flashy. You see something cool. You see something that would be useful. You see something beautiful. And you desire it. The eyes are constantly desiring. You're never full of your desire. You're never satisfied of your desire. So the wisdom there is, like, don't look for your satisfaction there. Your satisfaction should be in God, which is eternal and is always satisfied. You're always content with God, even though he pours more and more into you. That verse could be preached on a lot. You could draw a whole lot of wisdom out of verse 20 there. As a matter of fact, I think we'll stop there. That was verse 20. So Lord willing, we'll pick up in verse 21 next time. All right. As always, I love you guys. We'll talk to you later. Hey, everybody. We're continuing on in Proverbs Chapter 27. We read through verse 20, so we're going to pick up here in verse 21. It says, as the fining pot for silver and the furnace for gold, so is a man to his praise. Okay. So, we got a pretty clear, what's that called? Simile? Is that what that is? A simile? When you say something is like something else, I think that's a simile. And so that's what that means. So is, when it says so is, it's saying like. So we have a fining pot for silver. So silver goes into the fining pot. What does it do? It purifies it, right? It works out the impurities. And the furnace for gold, same scenario there. You put gold into a furnace for what purpose? To purify it, to get rid of the impurities. So is a man to his praise. So the man would be like the fining pot. The praise is what's being purified, what's being perfected. So is a man to his praise. In the same way that a fining pot is for silver and a furnace is for gold, so is a man for his praise. His praise is perfected. I'm sure there's a simplistic answer there that I'm missing. It's one of those verses that I've just read over 1,000 times and never really thought deeply about. But give me some insight there, if you have any. What does it mean? Silver's purified in the fining pot, gold is purified in the furnace. So the simile would be that praise is purified in a man. His praise is purified in a man. I'm not connecting it there for some reason. I can't see it. So is a man to his praise. What is praise? Praise is an acknowledgement. You're acknowledging what is good and vocalizing it. You're celebrating. So his praise, a man's praise, your celebration, I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking it. Maybe it's really simple. I don't know. Though thou shouldest bray a fool in mortar among wheat with a pestle, yet will not his foolishness depart from him. So I don't entirely understand what braying a fool in mortar among wheat with a pestle is, but I understand it has something to do with grinding grain, or running it over with the mill wheel, how they would crack the grain and grind it into powder. So even if you were to do that with a foolish person, is the analogy, his foolishness will not depart from him. So it's so deep-rooted, so ingrained, that even crushing him will not get it out. And to me, that just talks about the depravity of man. There's a rebellion in man, because foolishness is those who say there's no God. That's what Psalm 14 says foolishness is. So foolishness is an absence of wisdom, and the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. So a person who denies the Lord is what the scriptures call a fool. They're a foolish person. They don't even have the first steps of wisdom. And so that depravity is so ingrained, so deep inside of a person. You're supposed to, as you're raising children, that's what like spanking and stuff is supposed to drive the foolishness from their heart. But in order to be to really be delivered from foolishness, all the punishment in the world won't do it. There needs to be a rebirth. There needs to be a miracle. That stony heart of ours cannot be crushed enough to drive out the foolishness. It needs to be recreated. It needs to be redeemed by the Savior. Foolishness is our birthright. It's who we are by nature, and so to drive that from us requires being born again. And so that's wise to know. It's that's one of those things Jesus said, let the dead bury the dead. And he was talking about a specific instance there, but I think you can draw from that a general principle that those that are lost, those that are dead in their trespasses and sins, are going to do what dead people do. They're going to act foolishly. They're going to be selfish. So we should expect that. There's nothing you can do in corrective measures or through reforms to drive that from a person. All these, that just it makes me think about all the different things we do as a people group to try to make a better society, to try to bring about certain kinds of justice and seeking out political reform, and all the effort and all the things we put into that, and it's all vain. It's all empty. You can't change a leper's spots. You can't cause dead people to act like biblical Christians. through fear and suppression or oppression or tyranny of types. You can certainly suppress it, but it's just going to go underground. So like a Christian's goal is not to seek societal reform. It's not to seek out these efforts, to put all their effort into causing people to act better or getting people to do justly and act righteously. No, you're fighting a losing battle. You're trying to change a leopard's spots. The only thing we can do is preach the gospel. We bring the witness of Jesus Christ, the power of the gospel through the words of God, through the proclamation of the gospel, and He will change a person's heart, conform them from the inside out. He will change the leopard spot. He will create a new being, and then by nature they'll start to act in just, righteous ways. So that's how we change society, not through cultural activism or through political reform, but through the salvation of individual souls. One by one, we're creating the kingdom of God, and that's how we affect change. You can't force foolish people to not be foolish. It's in them. It's a heart matter. And only the supernatural power of the Holy Spirit working through the proclamation of the gospel can change a heart. And so that is the one and only purpose that Christians have here, is to proclaim the gospel, to seek and to see souls saved. One by one, we bring them into the kingdom, and then the Lord will fix them. We'll work out all those issues, and we'll cause them to walk in righteousness and holiness. But we want to do it on a big scale. We want a Christian culture, and we want society to live by the rules and the ethics of the Judeo-Christian model, and it's just not doable. Even when it is doable, it's temporary, because you're putting a Band-Aid on a severed artery. You're not fixing the problem, or better yet, you're putting a Band-Aid on internal cancer. That Band-Aid is doing nothing. The internal cancer needs to be removed, and that is done individually by the power of Christ. 23. Be thou diligent to know the state of thy flocks, and look well to thy herds. That's just saying be wise about your possessions, to be diligent, to there's this dichotomy of the Christian ethic, the Christian character. There's this weird opposing thing where we don't care about riches. We're not to set our heart on riches. We're not to think about gain. We're not to be anxious for tomorrow and to store up treasures. So that is the one hand. But on the other hand, we're supposed to be wise stewards and to be diligent and hardworking. So it's all about a heart. We want to do these things because the Lord has commanded us to do it. He's entrusted us with certain things, so we want to take care of it and do our best with it without caring about the results. The moment your mind shifts to the results, which is it's a 1 degree shift. It's so very easy to shift from a right mindset to a wrong mindset. But the moment you do that, it becomes covetousness. It becomes greed. It becomes something else, something dirty. The purity is to work hard, to take care of what the Lord has given you, to be diligent. That word diligent is like a persevering, hard-working, aware, just a wise steward of what we have. Everything the Lord gives you, to use your resources wisely, to take care of what you have. But to not care about it in the same sense, your heart isn't on those things. Your heart is on obedience to Christ. You want to be a hard worker because Christ wants you to be a hard worker, not because you want to get gain. And so that's where the focus needs to be. It's very easy, like I say, to deviate into the setting your eyes on the things. Verse 24, for riches are not forever, and doth the crown endure to every generation? There it is. It's riches are not forever. Money comes and goes. Your possessions come and go. It's not about the things. It's not about the money. It's about your character. being a good, wise, hardworking steward, and not caring whether it comes or goes, understanding that things are just things and money is just money, and everything you have is going to burn in the end anyways. The savings you have today is gone tomorrow, and you got to start over. So it's no biggie. It's like, whatever. That's not what it's about. What it's about is having the good character of being a diligent, hard, wise steward. So that was verse 24. We'll stop there. Lord willing, we'll pick up in 25 next time. All right, I love you guys. Talk to you later. Hey, everybody. We're continuing on in Proverbs Chapter 27. We read through verse 24, so we're going to pick up here in verse 25. It says, the hay appeareth, and the tender grass sheweth itself, and herbs of the mountains are gathered. The lambs are for thy clothing, and the goats are the price of the field. And thou shalt have goat's milk enough for thy food, for the food of thy household, and for the maintenance of thy maidens. So I think that's tying back into the verse, I think like verse 23 through 27 should be taken as a whole. So let me back up and reread those. We did 23 and 24 last time. Be thou diligent to know the state of thy flocks, and look well to thy herds. For riches are not forever, and doth the crown endure to every generation? The hay appeareth, and the tender grass sheweth itself, and the herbs of the mountains are gathered. The lambs are for thy clothing, and the goats are the price of the field. And thou shalt have goat's milk enough for thy food, and for the food of thy household, and for the maintenance of thy maidens. So I think the idea there is the providential goodness of the Lord, how he provides what you need. It's ironic, I was just talking about this with a brother, how we don't need to stress and worry about tomorrow. The Lord's Prayer, he says, give us this day our daily bread. And the Jews, when they were in the desert and the Lord miraculously gave them manna from heaven, they were told, take only what you need for today. Don't store up for tomorrow. Don't worry about tomorrow. And because that shows a lack of trust. Trust for tomorrow. The Lord will provide for tomorrow. Worry about today. Today is sufficient. And the scriptures talk about that over and over and over again. Do not be anxious about tomorrow. Don't worry about tomorrow. Be anxious for nothing. Take no thought for tomorrow, or take no thought what we'll wear, or what we'll eat, or what we'll drink. To take no thought is like to just have no concern at all about it, but to trust completely that the Lord will provide. And so I think that's the idea here is riches come and go. They're not going to endure forever, and the crown doesn't endure to every generation. Any riches or power or any sort of influence you have comes and goes. And so when you set your heart on riches, on possessions, on money, 1 Timothy talks about how you're piercing yourself through with many sorrows, chasing after money. The love of money is the root of all evil. It's that covetousness, the lust. 1 Peter talks about the corruption that is in the world through lust. It's lust that creates corruption. And money has a unique ability to cause that lust more than just about anything else. It lies at the root of all evil, that coveting, that desire for gain. And I'm probably going way off the topic here with the proverb, but that's just where my ideas are going with this. The hay appears, tender grass shews itself, herbs of the mountains are gathered. You don't have to worry about the herbs growing, the grass growing. The Lord is going to provide. The lambs that are given to you are for your clothing. The goats are for the price of the field. You'll have enough goat's milk for the day and for your household. So it's that trusting in the Lord day to day, trusting what he provides. Yes, we're to be wise stewards, to take good care of what he provides, but there's this duality of being a wise, faithful servant, but also being carefree. It almost seems paradoxical. How can you be wise and shrewd, but also carefree? And the Christian is called to do that. When the Lord provides whatever he provides, to take good care of it, to be smart, but to not set our heart on it, to be completely okay if it's here today, gone tomorrow, to not worry about tomorrow, but to have your heart just set on being a wise. So it's not about the things, it's about the character that the Lord requires of us. He requires us to be diligent, wise, and faithful. So that is why we do it, out of obedience to Him, and trying to create that virtuous character in ourselves. It's the character qualities that we focus on. Why are we wise? Why are we good stewards of what the Lord provides? Because He tells us to. Because it's obedience to Him. It has nothing to do with the things. It has nothing to do with gain. The moment you set your mind on the possessions and on gain, it turns into covetousness. It turns into that lust. So we have that duality of being wise, faithful stewards, but being carefree, not caring about the things, because it's not about the things. It's about obedience to Him. So whatever He provides, whether it's 1 penny or $1 million, or in this case, one field or a multitude of fields and lots of goats and sheep, because that was the money system back then. But the idea is just to trust the Lord to provide what you need each and every day. And whatever He provides, to take good care of it, to be a good and faithful steward, but to not care about it, to not be anxious about it. If the bank account's empty tomorrow, whatever. Riches make themselves wings and fly away. It's nothing. It's nonsense. It's just a thing. Your duty is the character of being virtuous and diligent with whatever the Lord provides. So, I don't know if that has anything to do with what we just read, but that's where my thoughts went with those verses. So, that wraps up chapter 27, and Lord willing, we'll start chapter 28 next time. All right, I love you guys. We'll talk to you later.